Was it golf balls? I mean, it looked like golf balls. Go on, just tell me it was golf balls, was it? Because I've got all this. What? Right, okay. How many minutes injury time was there at the end of the first half because of all the balls that come on? Four. four, four. Were they singing Patrick Stewart, get out of our club, or was it, get out your clubs, get out your clubs, to go and have a four ball or a 400 ball, whatever you want to have it. No, I heard Hibs are actually protesting officially to the Scottish authority, the football authorities. They want the game replayed because the break in play that was caused by throwing away. But they want a mulligan. They want a mulligan. No, Josh Mulligan. No, we didn't sign him, and everybody was saying we should have signed him for Dundee before. Barry was saying that Mulligan. It's been a while since I've felt this thing called happiness and satisfaction with Rangers, so it's going to take me a wee while to get it. It's a bit rusty, but we'll get there if this kind of carries on in this new vein of form that we're in. How you doing, folks? This is your Fatek immediate post. Rangers have won a game. Rangers have scored 2 goals. Rangers have scored a goal. The first goal they've scored in almost 3.5 games. The first goal they've scored, having had 8 goals scored against us since the last time we scored, and it's the second time we scored, followed soon after, and more than anything else, probably Russell Martin has, at the 6th time of asking, managed to record a win as Rangers manager against top flight Scottish opposition. That's probably more important than the fact we're actually in the League Cup semi-final, because we're always in the League Cup semi-finals these days. We're always in the final. Reaction pod coming to you in association with Gersnet. Check out Gersnet tomorrow night, Sunday night, 9:30 live on the Gersnet YouTube channel. It will be Mr. Ross Bennett, and he's been hosted by the inimitable Brian Archer, and that'll be absolutely fantastic if it wasn't for the fact that some kind of fat get with really bad patter about golf balls, if they even were golf balls, is going to be tagging along. So get on to that. We'll just watch that for the sake of being able to, as I was saying the last time, you can get on to Frankie, the owner, the chief, the top man at Gersnet. Get on to him and let him know every time I repeat some of the patter that I've been using tonight, because it's not really original at the best of times. So 2 reactions to the same game 2 nights in a row. It's going to be quite weird. Just tell them to get a refund, Frank. Get a refund for the massive appearance fee that I get every time I'm on Gersnet. I check that. That's on the Gersnet YouTube channel, 9:30 tomorrow. And thereafter it'll be on all good streaming platforms, as long as I don't say something too controversial, because I just might go a bit PLZ and just say something wild about that game the night that the golf balls had nails in them. I don't know what to. I'm sponsored by Gersnet, and I'm also sponsored by the Sony Bravia television. I can't quite remember the model. Is that model number LC? So but it was an award-winning advert. You remember it was filmed in 2006, just 19 years ago. It was Tory Glen, the old flats, and was it flats in Tory Glen? There were buildings in Tory Glen that were getting knocked down. I think they're due to get knocked down. They certainly weren't occupied anyway. Or maybe they were occupied. Who knows? And the residents approved it. I can't really remember. But what you remember is the colour. No, the blistering colour, the magical colour, because it was all about the sharpness of the picture that you would enjoy if you went and bought yourself a Sony television. And it was filmed. It was Jonathan Glazer, the director of that advert. The award-winning advert was Jonathan Glazer, who also did some of the award-winning Guinness adverts, the black and white ones that are really pretentious and wanky, and they're all like, guys, it's just aimed at middle-class guys, stuff a bit. Guinness, I like a Guinness, like everybody else. He did Radiohead music videos, a couple of them. I think he also did the Massive Attack video stuff, but he's won all sorts of awards, Jonathan Glazer, but he's probably best known now, as it should be, for directing Sexy Beast, Under the Skin, a phenomenal film, Under the Skin, which is half it's filmed round about here, half it's filmed Copeland Roads, Edmiston Drive, and it's Scarlett Johansson on it. It's just, you should watch Under the Skin. It's a superb film. Jonathan Glazer, The Zone of Interest, of course, there's that as well. And there's the one, is it Birth or something it's called? It's Nicole Kidman, and her husband dies, and then there's this wee boy appears, and it's like he's making it, he's been the husband reincarnated. It's a fantastic film. Anyway, the whole point is, we're not golf, but he was kind of one of the things that got him to prominence, Jonathan Glazer, fantastic director, is the that advert to Sony Bravia, and I was thinking about that tonight. I was thinking that night when all the golf balls come. Was it golf balls? I don't know. They said, why would you throw golf balls at your own goalkeeper? But we'd been talking, hadn't we? We've been talking, us mainstream media and Rangers fan media people, about how it was going to be an absolute aberration. It was all about out with. It was all about out with, without, out with. And I'm like, that's Scottishism. If you're my sister and you're at uni down south and your lecturers and that and your tutors are giving it, what's this word you're putting in here, out with? It's like a Scottish word, apparently. We didn't realise it was a Scottish word until we tried to take it down south. But that's what it was all about, wasn't it? The out with. That was the hysterical build up to this particular range. 3 Rangers home games on the bounce. It's been it's an absolute hysteria. It's going to be an absolute riot at if Celtic score early on. Remember that? What's the fans going to do? If it almost like goading us into doing something. And of course it was one of the dullest games of all time, almost like a direct reaction to make sure there was nothing, zero to get excited about in any way. And then we had Hearts last week. Are Hearts good enough to go top of the league? Rangers should have signed Lawrence Shankland. Some guy, number 43 that plays for Rangers, he's not in the team. He's been dropped. He's fallen out with the man. He was supposed to get Celtic, didn't get Celtic, still here, and he's not going to play him. Oh my God, how are the Rangers fans going to take this? Not too well as it turned out. And the night it was all about the out with, like, the fans out with the stadium, the number of fans that were going to be outside the main doors at the beginning of the game, and how viciously they were going to be protesting against Patrick Stewart, like the chief executive, really, and Russell Martin. That was the faces, certainly, and all the really well laminated placards that were doing the rounds on Edmiston Drive and Shield Hall Road as I was making my way to the game the night. It was all about the fans out with, and then of course the fans that weren't in the stadium as the game took place because they were out with, they hadn't bothered buying a ticket because things are so bad. But the whole point of that was, it's kind of useless now, Ibrox, because it's so beautifully redone, touched up. Molly Waddle, of course, did the hard work, the best work, the most vital work. But when David Murray comes in the late 80s, he starts off getting it into the early 90s, starts doing it up again, filling in the corners, getting the beauty. Very, very sensitive. I always mean to mention that. The stairs for the... we're not wasting time on it, Alex. No, the staircases at the sides, the main stand, Archibald Leitch's main stand, up to the club deck. I know it was a massive thing at the time, but they are very sensitive. They fit in well. Really difficult thing to do that. Beautiful, our main stand. But the main thing is, we changed the seats, didn't we? Multicoloured seats. It was all about the multicoloured seats. I'm sorry, but I'm wasting time. I'm so used to wasting time to get rid of the Celtic fans at the beginning of pods. I don't actually know how to get straight to the point, but this is the point. It is the point that it was going to be really embarrassing how many empty seats there were in Ibrox tonight. There was going to be nobody there, and oh God, you could almost feel them wishing that it was still the pre-David Murray era when the seats at Ibrox were multicoloured. Not multicoloured individually, but there was a block of yellow, a block of brown, a block of blue, a block of red within each stand, each of the new 3 goalpost style stands that were fitted around about 78, 79. The last time we went, the first 5 league games of the season without a win. We went further than that under John Gregg, 78, 79, and we took it down to a league decider in the last game. I'm just repeating myself, but the whole point was it's supposed to be multicoloured. Multicoloured seats were shown up a bit, but it's all blue seats we've got. It was very tasteful the way we've done that, but don't ever pick out our name in white seats within the blue seats, Rangers or the new owners. Don't do it. That's the thing I would protest. That's the thing that would have me up in arms. You're taking out the blue, you're putting in stupid Rangers FC or Adidas or whatever it is, whatever sponsor we're going to have in big white letters. Just keep all the seats blue. It's absolutely gorgeous. But the multicoloured seats would have shown up how bad the thing. But it turns out you got all these golf ball-sized balls that were chucked onto the park 10 minutes in as part of the protest. Rangers actually doing quite well in the game at that point in time. I know it's certainly nowhere near as badly as we're doing against Hearts at that time last week. So a bit annoying for old guys like myself, but you just, it's the singing section, it's the hardcore section, it's the youths, it's the militant section that every support needs. And on came the wee golf-sized balls. But there was pink, and there was yellow, and there was red, kind of day-glow yellow, there was blue, and then you had Jack Butland dotting about, and he was in all orange. So it was quite kind of reminiscent of both the old... the stands in the old days, just before we got the seats changed to all blue. Maybe we used to get your ticket in. It was with paper tickets kids used to get in the days, and it would have the big square over to the right hand side to let you know. It'd be a big yellow square you're in the yellow section within the Copeland Roads, or a big, brown square or whatever, because you're in the brown. That's quite good. But that's what it was like watching on the go. And it was also like that Sony Bravia television advert with Jonathan Glazer. It was brilliant colour, and you thought, if you just bought a new telly, and I need a new telly actually, we need a new telly. We've got the kind of white things, white circles have started appearing. Really old telly we've got. So in the living room, you get a new telly, but it would be nice if you're sitting there and you're watching it on TNT Sports, because you hate the new head coach and you hate the manager, or like me, you hate the fact you've got to go to Ibrox at tea time on a Saturday night, stupid kick-off time, and it's not in the season ticket. So that's the biggest reason most folk don't go to these games. They're always under-attended. But you're watching on TNT Sports, there'll be close-ups, I'd imagine, all the balls coming out of the park because there's nothing else happening. Play eventually got stopped, and you go, that's beautiful, isn't it? It's beautiful. You're allowed to think it was beautiful. It's okay. It's a wee bit of a rainbow. I don't know why they didn't do that thing. They bring on the big round of applause from the old folks like myself in the stands when the staff come out, the ground staff come out and cleared the balls off the park. But I don't know why they didn't get the things, the big squeegee things, the big long things that they do when there's water on the pitch. That would have been, they could have done a one or there. See, old folk, we just complain about everything. That's what it's like at Rangers just now. Oh, why have they sent on about 15 different guys to chuck off one ball at a time? Surely they should have just got a big squeegee thing. It would probably around the grass or something. I don't know. I'm just saying that thing. It's the Rangers disease, right? The Rangers supporter disease right now is just moan about everything, especially if somebody tries to do something about it, like stripping your club right down to its component parts, stripping that squad right down to its component parts, and trying to build it back up again, so they can get it going again and sort out the problems that we've had for the last 4 seasons, which has not been able to raise it for the middle ranking games in the domestic situation, and obviously that's going to involve us being a bit slow at the start of the season, because as I was saying to somebody today on the post, a lot of people very kindly replying to last night's 2-hour long, 1 hour 54 minute long preview pod, which is really again about the ongoing situation in general at Ibrox. As I was trying to say to somebody today, it's like a juggernaut of ire. It's quite embarrassing to repeat your own part, because it's like you think you're giving away the fact you're quite chuffed your own part, but like a juggernaut of ire that we're having to, as we go along, and we're going all over the place, and we're having to just slow the vehicle down so we can strip down the engine and pick out the bits that aren't working, make sure we don't pick out any of the bits that are working, and then that's obviously going to require a massive drop in speed to make sure that we get ourselves going again. Properly, we get the engine properly repaired. But I'm sick of the metaphors, I'm sick of the analogies. You know what we're trying to do here. But we seem to be on our way back on the right road after tonight's results. How you doing, folk? My name is Alec Anderson. Young bones grow and the rocks below say throw your skinny body down, son, 'cause I've gone to meet the one I love. So please don't stand in my way. I'm going to meet the one I love. La-di-da, la-di-da. Oh, mama, let me go. Young bones grow and the rocks below say throw your white body down. 'Cause I've gone to meet the one I love. At last, at last, at last. I've gone to meet the one I love. La-di-da, la-di-da. Oh, mama, let me go. Oh, no, no. Oh, no, no. No, 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 no. I thought that if you had an acoustic guitar, then it meant that you were a protest singer. Well, I can smile about it now, but at the time it was terrible. Oh, mama, let me go. I thought that if you had a loud hailer, then it meant that you were a Rangers supporter. Now that you were leading the fans in songs, you weren't actually a protest singer. And we can, talk about how terrible it is just now, but hopefully we'll be smiling about it and laughing about it in years to come, because it's pretty embarrassing stuff that was going on today, or maybe I'm being pretty embarrassing by sticking up for a head coach who's obviously out to sabotage us from within, and a chief executive who's, not just made a couple of mistakes at the start of his tenure at a massive club, but he's out to sabotage. And he was a bit previous when he had a go at the Union Bears earlier in the year, but fair dues. We all make mistakes. It's hard to get everything right at a club this size. My name's Alec Anderson, and that was Shakespeare's Sister. Of course, a wee rendition there of Shakespeare's Sister, one of my favourite ever Smith songs. And I first heard that, I heard it live. The only time I heard it live, it was 40 years ago tomorrow, really. 40 years ago tomorrow. It's quite annoying. It was the 22nd of September 1985 at the Magnum Leisure Centre in Irvine. I saw the Smiths live. Seminal moment in my life. I was only 16 years old at the time, but tomorrow is Sunday the 21st, and it's just really annoying. I always remember it was a Sunday. And I looked it up on Setlist. There's a good website you can go to look up all gigs and see it was the Meat is Murder tour, so it is relevant to Russell Martin. Meat is Murder. Oh, you're a vegan, Russell Martin, you'd have hated that. And they look up the set list, and at the end of the kind of first part of the set, before they start doing the encores, song number 13, the Michael Ballack number, the Thomas Muller number, the Gerdie Muller number, the Dieter Muller number, the Max Morlock number, the Todd Cantwell number, the Derek Cornelius number 13 at the end of the first part of that gig was How Soon Is Now. Oh, how soon is now? You're never going to win in. How soon are we actually going to win a trophy? How soon are we actually going to get a game won? Well, tonight we won a game tonight. How soon are we going to score a goal? Tonight we scored a goal, then we scored another one tonight. How soon are we going to win? Well, find out. And did they do Heaven Knows I'm Miserable Now? Yes, they did. They did do Heaven Knows I'm Miserable Now. Frankly, Mr. Shankly, it was the first time it had ever been played live. I remember jumping along to that one. That was the one part of the whole kind of gig where I felt things slowed down a wee bit. I wasn't really frankly, but years later you get to love this song. But that was the first time it was ever played live. It was the first time Big Mouth Strikes Again was played live. Big Mouth Strikes Again. That sounds like Patrick Stewart. That sounds like what Patrick Stewart was doing. Maybe it is. It's so relevant. It's so relevant. But that was 40 years ago tomorrow. I'd been to see us beating Osasuna at home in the first leg. Osasuna's first ever match in European club competition. Quite an honour to be at that one. Craig Patterson in the rain, scoring the only goal of the game. We went out. We did eventually go out, but that was we beat Osasuna 1-0, and we were unbeaten at that point in the season. I'd just started working. I'd got a job at the beginning of September 1985. I was 16 years old, I say, but I was still wanting to go and see Rangers home and away. That was my main ambition in life. And I'd started school in the August or whatever, trying to go for hires and stuff like that. But I was just like, no, this isn't working, because the paper round had kept me. It paid for me to go and see Rangers just practically everywhere in Scotland. The previous season, obviously, knew I was over 16, things were more expensive, so it wasn't quite working out the same way. So I had to get myself a full-time job. So I packed in the school and I went and I worked at a local travel agent's the kind of head office, which just happened to be in the town next to mine. Just working as a kind of office junior type, sitting in the mailroom thing. Bellboy, no, I was more like the main boy in Quadrophenia, but I always kind of tallies with me that. But I was doing that job, and that just gave me enough money to go and see Rangers every week. But then a good blue nose who I haven't seen for years, but he's on Facebook and all that. That guy I was at school with, a guy who got me through my maths exam, really, because I was terrible at maths. He just kind of coached me. Joined the Merchant Navy. I'll not give you his name because you hate Rangers and you've got to start getting in touch with him and give him abuse and all that. But he's still a heavy duty concert goer, and no wonder when that was one of the first ones he probably had went to. It was my first ever concert, and when they opened with that, the Smiths opened with that, it just absolutely blew me away. You're 16-year-old, imagine, and it's the Montagues and the Capulets, Prokofiev. I don't know if there was a support act, but we're all standing. We were quite close to the front. It was the Magnum Leisure Centre. We'd actually been there a couple of years earlier, me and Davey, the fellow was away, because we played volleyball. We played a bit of volleyball because our PE teacher was a Scottish international at the volleyball, and we'd been there watching him playing Scotland against England, Scotland beating England at the volleyball. But there we were on the pitch, so to speak, on the court. But that was now the concert, the floor of the concert, and the stage. I don't know if there's a support act because these heavy duty floodlights come on shining right in our face and you couldn't see in, you couldn't see. I think somebody's up there setting up. Could you hear anything behind the lights? It was kind of blinding you, the lights right in the face of the audience. And then they put on the Prokofiev, the Montagues, and it did. And you're like, oh God, I can't hear it, and I can't hear. And then suddenly the lights just dropped and the Prokofiev went off in this kind of droll, camp, self-educatedly posh Mancunian voice just went hiya, and then went right into Shakespeare's Sister, which just, wow, it's like kind of in mid-air song, Shakespeare's Sister. It just takes you right into the middle of something you don't even know what it is, and away you go. And that lyric, I thought that if you had an acoustic guitar, it meant that you were a protest singer. That's one of the most brilliant lyrics of all time. I know I go on all the time about Subterranean, Homesick Alien, Radiohead. I tell all my friends, but they never believe me. They think that I'd finally lost it completely, and I do love that. It's probably my favourite lyric ever. But it's because of the music behind it as well, obviously. But it's got to be right up there, isn't it? It's got to be right up there. And then number 13, that song, number 13 on the set list that night, How Soon Is Now. It's probably the second greatest lyric of all time, or the third, it would be the second greatest Smiths lyric of all time. There's a club if you'd like to go, you could meet somebody that really loves you. So you go and you stand on your own, and you leave on your own, and you go home and you cry and you want to die. But it's a club, you could go and you could meet somebody who really no, but I really love them. I really love the club that I go to see, and I don't mind if I stand on my own, if I go on my own, and I don't go home and cry and want to die, but I cry sometimes when things are really good for the club that we all like to go and see tonight. What was it, 20? They were talking about how the crowd was going to be sub 20. Oh, it was sub 20,000, the crowd, sub 20,000. Nothing like it. It was at least 21, 22,000, and Hibs brought through an extra 2,000 more than they usually do, so that's probably what's made it. But it was fantastic that night, going to see the Smiths, and that was 40 years ago tomorrow, effectively. And I really like National Shite Day, half man, half biscuit. I've quoted that a few times during the past few seasons, haven't I? And the famous lyric in that, there's a man with a mullet going mad with a mallet and millets. It's a great lyric. It's really funny. It's good, but it's a kind of. It's not kind of cartoon. It's kind of cartoonish. It's a great song, National Shite Day. It's fantastic. And Half Man, Half Biscuit do the hard work. They do the music. They write the lyrics. They write lots of songs, and they keep touring. I have the CSI Ambleside album. I've had a drink standing at the bit outside in the pub that's on the cover of CSI Ambleside. In Ambleside, been to Ambleside a couple of times for a couple of wee holidays down the lakes here. But it's a fantastic song. But that lyric, if you can do your own kind of version, I've always thought there's a woman with a weave, going a bit wobbly with a wigwam and Woolworths, and that kind of thing. No, it does fit because it did used to sell wigwams and Woolworths when I was 7 years old. I got a wigwam for my 7th birthday. I got a wigwam for my 7th. Just got up, and it's a wigwam was sitting in the living room. I'd seen the searchers as well, and that's the thing. So I just immediately started trying to scalp my wee sister. She's been living with the buck, Dad. She's been living with the buck. He's like, fuck, it's calm down, mate. My aunties, my two aunties, they were kind of teenagers at the time. They took it over to Arran to go camping. The wigwam we got in Woolworths back in the 70s, 77, the first. I was 7 in 1977, and I saw Hibs. There was the first team I ever saw playing at Ibrox, and the first goal I ever saw live in the flesh. It was Ali Brown, the guy's name. He scored it for Hibs, but we beat them 2-1, and that was a prediction I had the night for the score of the night. But no, it was 2-0 to Rangers in this League Cup quarter-final. From which afterwards I am outside reporting from. I was saying how it was going to be dark. Saying last night in the preview pod, we'll go in there and it'll be light, but when we get outside it'll be dark. Just hope our moods have changed the other way around. I thought that was very poetic. Of course, anytime I do try to be poetic, as usual, it was pish because it's dark now. But when we first left, first come into the stadium the day, it was dull as ditchwater, and I'm walking through the detritus. I'm seeing all the bits of. The wee sweepy guy, you'll have heard him, he's down there now, you'll have heard him in the background already tonight. He's the star man, the kind of sanitation workers of Glasgow that operate around about Ibrox. They feature very heavily in these post-match reaction pods, and they were out in strength before the game tonight on Edmiston Drive, picking up all the ripped-up little kind of placards with Russell Martin's face, getting the cancel red stroke through it, and Patrick Stewart right next to him getting the same treatment. By the time I get there, I just come along like 5-10 minutes before kick-off. I'm not a reporter. I'm not going to get. These are more like diaries. These things I do. It's just like a day in the life of a Rangers fan. This is what another Rangers fan is thinking. So I'm not going to interrupt my routine specifically to come and see what's happening outside Ibrox, the demo, and I didn't want to add to it. I didn't really agree with it, but I wasn't going to object to it. But they had massive cross barriers everywhere, ready to be turned into sharks. So it looked like it must have been well attended. It all broken up by the time I get in. I saw a couple of guys just outside the wee Rangers club having a word with other guys who I think had tried to tell them no to go to the game. They were kind of boycotting it. I'm just trying to go to the game. You're getting in my face. That's, I don't want to be a grass. I know I am being a grass, bit of a gossip. But that was it. Generally, everybody just got on with it. So like you walked past the bit that and then somebody just said, "Oh, Stewart, going to help that old guy into the gate." Thanks very much. The turnstile. I was having trouble. It was the first time I ever had trouble with the ticket on the phone. I'd remember to download it this time. I've had trouble remembering to download the thing when it's the QR code ticket on the phone, as opposed to your smart card season ticket. But tonight I had downloaded it. It's a different. There may be difference, and I think you have to expand it a bit bigger, whatever. Basically, I went into the turnstile, went through the wee entrance, and then I put it in, and it just wasn't happening at all. I've been a bit tired. A lot of really long pods. I've been a bit tense. Sorry about that. And there was a woman behind me, and she's saying, "You might." This sums it up. I'm just. No, you take yourself out there's a wee queue building up. You take yourself out the way to let folk get in. While you adjust your phone and try to enlarge it and check you've no put the night light on or something like that. And the woman saying, "You want to use a spare ticket?" That's not the right thing to think. She's got a spare. She's like, it's so bad, the crowd, compared to what it might have been. Perhaps that somebody, I'm trying to play down the fact that it's not in the season ticket, the game. It's tea time on a Saturday night, and it's live on the telly. So folk generally find these games a bit of a hassle to get to, an extra expense as well. And it's the time is absolutely terrible. It's a terrible time for a kick-off, tea time on a Saturday, but. I think the crowd was pretty reasonable considering, but this woman she's like to me, "Do you want to just use my ticket as a way to get in?" Really, so that was a bit of a dunt in respect of sticking up for Rangers. Although absolutely lovely, could just prove the Rangers support are lovely to a person. And I took myself back out on Edmiston Drive. Then went through I just went into the next wee turnstile because it wasn't as. I'm back in there and I've expanded it a bit. And there's a fella having the same trouble as me right in front of me. I said, "Guys, fuck, I'm done. That's just doing my nutting." I said, "I know, mate, I had the same hassle around there." So he stood out the way for me, and he's standing there, he's going, "I'm telling you what, I'm sick of this. I'm just going to go in behind somebody. But you can squeeze up behind somebody as the turnstile goes round." There wasn't a lot of stewards around tonight. They must have been all outside dealing with the demonstration earlier. And I'm like, "Right, okay." And he's like, "Right, on you go, mate. No, on you go." It wasn't me. He was going to try and get behind. Well, basically saying there's no room behind you to get the two of us in through the. So that was another dunt, another boot to the Nads, just as a double dunt to the Nads as I was going in the night. But I managed to drag myself up the stairs. That wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. The crowd and then the team. I hadn't had a chance to check the team before I got along to the Ibrox because I was too busy, chatting to you guys on the replies. Brilliant feedback to my amazingly, stupidly long pod last night. Thanks to everybody who took the time to watch even 5 minutes of that. I eventually break it up into wee segments to make it, kind of, you can just take a wee kind of slice out of it if you want to. But there's just so much emotion going about over the last week, as has been the case for the last 3 months or so at Ibrox, that it warranted more than a usual just a preview pod going through a possible starting 11, although that in itself is an epic discussion these days at Rangers. But maybe an hour and 54 minutes was just a bit on the long side, so thanks to everybody and thanks for all the feedback. I'm just having great fun chatting away to folk, and Chris, I better get myself to the game. And I hadn't had a chance to check the team, so you're watching people warming up and the team's getting announced. It was just that's Jack Butland's in goals. Liam Kelly getting put out yesterday, and thanks to everybody who I'd watched the first 2 or 3 minutes. I had Liam Kelly's pre-match presser yesterday when he was talking to the press. He was the player put forward yesterday for the media duties, and it was brilliant. The thing is, he's using. I was saying this to somebody today. He's using the interviewer's or the questioner's name when he's replying to them. I think that's something. I think all this stuff about Russell Martin being aggressive, sort of being arrogant, and talking to us with contempt and that kind of stuff, that's made up. That's totally made up. They've got to the stage now where supporters know that they're being OTT, I think, a lot of the time in their criticism. They just want to vent kind of toxic frustration on somebody that's probably not entirely to do with the football itself. So if you can kind of demonise them, that makes it, kind of dehumanise them a little bit. It makes it easier. You feel less guilty about piling into them. And this stuff where he's evil, he's gaslighting, he's a charlatan, that's when you know it's beyond the pale. The guy's here obviously trying to do a job. But I think maybe it is. Russell Martin's press on Friday, he said to somebody, he was quite right, because he'd been slagged rotten for it, for taking the team for a walk in the fresh air and a bit of a dip on Monday. It had been turned into something, as if he's taken us away to a retreat in Tibet or something like that. But it was. So he says to the guy, somebody, he's like, I've been for a walk up a hill and for a bit of a swim, mate. That you're thinking. I think the guy deserved. No, I think the media deserved a bit back from Russell Martin. But as a Rangers supporter, that's the only time you're really hearing Russell Martin talking. And of course, the media at the press conferences, you don't see them. You don't see them. You hear their voices asking the questions, so you're just seeing the manager maybe being a bit snappy with somebody who deserves it. But that's the way he's kind of communicating with you. And I thought Liam Kelly, the way he was just properly, obviously Liam Kelly's been here longer. He's played in Scotland his whole life. He knows for far longer than Russell Martin ever did. So he knows the members of the media. He knows the members of the press and all that. He's much more friendly with them. So I think just using the name, learn the names. Like a teacher first day at school, Russell, maybe go and learn the names of all the folk that are asking these questions, and I think that makes a big difference when you're saying to them, "No, you're talking shite," Tom English, whatever. But it seems a lot friendlier, less arrogant. It can reduce the stupid accusations that are made against you. I need to talk about the game, folks. Sorry, I'm absolutely buzzing. We're 1-2 nothing. I'm absolutely buzzing. Yeah, the team. I was talking about the team, and of course, the big news, the massive, absolutely massive news was it was Liam Kelly wasn't he in goals. Thought that was maybe it's a bit of a feint, a little bit of mind games by the gaffer there. Liam Kelly put forward to the press yesterday, but it was Super Jack Butland in goals. 2 changes. This is one thing. See, when you say like the front 3 kept their places, but see if they've swapped, they kept their places. And there's only 2 changes to the starting 11 against Hearts last Saturday. That terrible, awful game where we lost 2-0 to Hearts last Saturday. But it's like Gassam and Mikey Moore, who both played last Saturday, but they're playing in different wings today. They were playing on opposite wings. They swapped wings at the start of the game today. Does that mean they've kept their place? Can you say kept their places? Because they're playing a different place on the park. But I don't know. Anyway, there's 2 changes. We had Derek Cornelius coming in at left centre half, which lets Big John Suter, Big Soapy, go to right centre half. Immense. What a difference that makes, and no coincidence probably that we kept a clean sheet tonight. And then up front, of course, you've also got, as I say, Gassam and Mikey Moore. I wasn't keen on Mikey Moore. I thought he wasn't very good against Hearts. He's not getting a lot of service like most of our kind of attacking players, but I thought he maybe needed a rest, the young man. But he was playing again on the right hand side. I would have preferred Oliver Antman, but what do I know? Because Mikey Moore went on to assist in our second goal. So they were playing opposite sides, and we still had Miovski up front. It was a 4-2-3-1. We were playing Tav at right back, Magoma at left back. You've got, again, retaining his place in that kind of nominal 10 position. Thelonious Gerard Asgard playing the kind of number 10 role, but keeping more to it tonight, not having to go over so much to the right hand side to cover for Tav. Apparently that was why he was over there, according to a few of the cleverer podders than me, or any podders cleverer than me, but the ones that are kind of more concentrating on tactics and stuff. But the big news, I was last night, who's it going to be? Who's it going to be in the middle of the park? It was a sitting 2. We're playing the 4-2-3-1. So you got 2 6s, your double pivot, your 2 sitters, whatever you want to call them. And it was Mo Diamande, who played last week as well, of course. And the other one was the one and only Nico Raskin, number 43. I did say I would like to see him benched for this one. Brought back into the squad, then he comes on in the second half. But of course, that's me making a complete fool of myself. Never mind slagging the Union Bears for the protests. Because Nico Raskin just ran the game. He just come on and made the big difference, a symbolic difference, a practical difference, an actual difference. We did look a lot more secure and all that. I just hope he has. It's not a case of he's undermined the manager to get himself back into the team, because I was a bit worried about the fact that Russell Martin was saying yesterday, that walk round the lock, we've both learned something. We had a wee chat and all that, all discussion, and we've both learned. I could maybe have learned a few things. Nico's learned a few things, blah, blah, blah. Maybe he was covering, maybe he didn't want to make it that he was throwing Nico under a bus, so he was saying, it's a bit my fault as well, and all that. But I'm still a bit worried about that. Maybe come back to bite us in the arse, but you couldn't ignore it tonight. It was fantastic. Nico Raskin and Mo Diamande back to their old selves. And it's a big game because of the attention that's been put onto it in itself. But this was maybe it's sometimes in Rangers In recent years, Hibs hasn't been the big game that it should be, particularly at Ibrox. So is this them raising their levels in a game that they wouldn't usually? Because that's certainly been part of the problem for Rangers in recent years. But it was a magnificent performance from the pair of them tonight. It really set us up for everything that we did well. It basically just raising the line, taking the line forward, the start of the attacks, and we weren't spectacular. We did some spectacular stuff tonight, but we weren't spectacular generally. But compared to the game against Hearts, where we were being dominated in the opening 20 minutes, the whole first half really, against Hearts last week, we hardly get near the ball. We just looked shaky, we looked insecure, we looked a bit clueless really last week. Tonight, it's pretty boring at times. I think we're about the 34th minute. I remember thinking to myself, yeah, protests and those kind of interruptions aside, we started off looking better, but it's not really gone anywhere. We're doing a lot of kind of side-to-side horseshoe stuff, but I don't really see we're hardly having any kind of shots on goal. And then just before that, we upped it a gear just after that, and we got 2 goals before the half-time whistle. But I think in general we just looked kind of safer, more solid, more studied. We had lots of possession that wasn't really going anywhere, but we were having it in the Hibs half, outside the Hibs box, and we weren't panicking by the fact that it wasn't going anywhere. We looked like we were concentrating, watching for gaps, and if those gaps weren't appearing, we weren't panicking. The same we might have done in the past under Russell Martin at the start of Russell Martin's project, as the players are obviously starting to... They're learning. You can't help but thinking Russell Martin, everything we know about him, he's given them a hell of a lot to learn. He said it himself. They've got a lot of instruction to take on board since I've arrived. He's been saying that since the moment he did arrive. And the players have, in games like last week, in games against Dundee, etc., the games have been slipping up in the league in particular so far this season. They've looked like they're reading out a book, so to speak. They're thinking about drawings, diagrams, tactics boards, and the placement of their little disc that corresponds to them on the tactics board. Where am I supposed to be now? That kind of stuff. Like they're studying that kind of NFL style playbook, and that's. But you're playing against Hearts last week, and they're playing football. They're playing the game that's in front of them. But that's a Derek McInnes side. He'll not be giving them a lot of complicated instruction, will he? Get behind the ball or get on top of the ball. But tonight we looked more comfortable, more fluent, still playing what looks like a Russell Martin style, because we were very high at times, nearly caught out a couple of times, but there was a few times, I think, apart from getting the goals and getting the win, there was a couple of times in the second half, and I was saying in the pod last night how Hibs have recovered twice from being 2 goals down this season, once in Europe, once in the league, and I'm thinking, when we couldn't get that third goal in the second half, I'm thinking, yeah, they've not done it in the League Cup, I'd just like them to do it in the League Cup as well, once in every competition, Hibs this season, coming back from 2 goals down. But there's a couple of times that Hibs were getting corners, maybe the kind of 20 to 15 minutes to go, and I'm thinking this is the point where they'll start mounting their comeback. But when we cleared that corner, we were through, we were in, we had a couple of lovely counter-attacks, and then I think it was about 10 minutes to go. We had a little moment where Connor Barron's on the park by this point in time, and Jack Butland's got the goal. He's got the ball at his feet in the box, and you could see them consciously thinking that thing they were trying to do at Motherwell at Fir Park in the first league game of the season. Sorry, I know this wasn't a league game, it was against top flight opposition though. It was right, there's 2 Hibs attackers at the edge of our box, and they're kind of coming into the box, and Jack Butland passes it between the 2 of them to Connor Barron, who has got his back to goal and is, I don't know, when you're watching the game you're a bit nervous. I'm not concentrating properly. It felt like he was basically right in the 18-yard line, Connor Barron, between the 2 Hibs defenders who were coming in to mug him. But Connor Barron takes it and he passes it back to Butland, and Butland finds somebody else. That making space thing, that draw them in and break the first line and that shoe through. And it looked like they just got to a point where they were confident again in what Russell Martin was wanting them to do. And 2 goals up, they were remembering the stuff that he wanted them to do, and they were enjoying it almost tonight, Rangers, and I certainly enjoyed it as well. The game itself, of course, we've got the first minute of the game. The Union Bears were all holding up their little placards with Patrick Stewart and Russell Martin's faces on them. I've been dealing with this stuff in the preview pod, so I'll not get into my own feelings on that, but it's safe to say I don't really agree with that level of criticism at all. I want both men still to be at the club, obviously, particularly Russell Martin at this point in time, until we can find out what he actually is trying to do. It does feel like it's a plan that's slowly coming together. Or the stripping is down to our bare essentials part has certainly been done, and we're starting to build it back up again tonight. It's in keeping with everything we were told it would happen under Russell Martin. It would be really, really slow and we go backwards before we go forwards. But that aside, the practicalities of it were, in the first minute of the game, you've got the Union Bears who were providing the only noise that wasn't Hibernian noise in the stadium tonight. So that's the kind of political dichotomy you've got going on there as a supporter of Rangers who might disagree with their stance. They are your fellow supporters and they're keeping the stadium buzzing. Their first minute, the first song they sung is Martin, get to fuck, Martin, get to fuck. And I looked down in there's Russell Martin, the technical area, and it was quite good. He came in and he just starts applauding. But he's applauding, he's doing that thing of geeing up his own players at exactly the same time. But it looked like he might have been sarcastically saying, I think, waving towards the Union Bears, who, of course, when we beat Victoria Pilsenia 3-0 at Ibrox, they were the ones that were singing Russell Martin's Blue and White Army. It was the same boys. So they're just kind of fluctuating wildly as their job. But it reminded me the night I was watching, the first time I saw Spain at Hampden, the night Ken Dalglish scored his last goal for Scotland, where we beat Spain 3-1 at Hampden in 1984, the year before I went to that Smiths concert. And Louis Arcanada was in goals for Real Sociedad. Louis Arcanada, great goalkeeper, legendary goalkeeper at Spain, and he came out the second half up to the Rangers end, where I was standing at the Rangers end with my dad and my uncle. And everybody's singing, Canada, you're a wanker. And he throws the kit bag, he throws the wee gloves bag into the back of the net, the huge old Hampden nets, and he just thank you, applause, and I think he kind of taps his badge or taps his heart, and thank you. And I'm thinking, yeah, the guy obviously, even if he could speak English, he won't be able to speak Scottish English, largely Glaswegian English, and he'll just be hearing, the only bit he'll be hearing is, Canada. And you're a wanker must be some kind of Spanish-Scottish guy who was a great goalkeeper, and that's the ultimate compliment you can get from these. And he just to go into places where they're giving it, Canada, what a great goalkeeper. And the thing was, it just totally everybody's like, fair dues, mate. No, actually, give him a wee round of applause. You're actually a pretty decent goalie. It was quite nice, and I thought that's maybe what Russell Martin was doing at that moment in time. But something else, but 5 minutes in, a lot of the bed sheets come out in the Broomlin with I think 3 of them said Stewart out, spray painted onto them. One of them was Martin out. There was various things going up, various banners going up in the Union Bears, but where I am in the main stand, I'm kind of almost level with it, so it's hard for me to read. It's kind of too square on at times. And I agreed that was a bit. And that was about 5 minutes in, and then the 10-minute mark, on came the golf balls. And Rangers had started comfortably, they started steadily, nothing spectacular, but after what had happened last week against Hearts, that in itself was a major progression. Of course, the Nico Raskin song was getting belted out, and it wasn't just us singing the name of a player that we like. It was political. That was anti-Martin as well, because a stupid binary opposition has been drawn up by the fans. But maybe it's a binary opposition that Russell Martin has arrived at as well. We had the one and only Martin Boyle going through. I think he went round. I think he was offside just before the golf balls come on, and he went round Jack Butland, but he couldn't quite get the angle right, or something like that. And then after the golf balls had been cleared up, I think Mikey Moore had a wee injury as well. He did get a bit of treatment. It was that thing of a sudden ball over the top, just one touch over the top, a la Bruges, a la so many other teams playing against us. A bit like the move, a less subtle version of the move Hearts had when Lawrence Shanklin scored the first goal against us last Saturday. Through the ball went, and Martin Boyle runs onto it and gets in front of Derek Cornelius. I was hoping he was already in front of him. It's quite a dramatic moment. He goes round Jack Butland. Jack Butland just kind of is pushing him out to try and narrow the angle, and he gets a shot away, but Jack Butland gets a touch to it. Looks like he saved it point blank, but the ball's still kind of, the momentum's taking the ball towards the bottom corner. Derek Cornelius is running back to get it, but Cornelius goes into the net with the ball. And it was very. I'm thinking of other goals I've seen that were like that. I'm not going to get into that. But it was, here we go, we're a goal down. But immediately there was appeals from the Rangers players, and this is one of those moments where if this was happening against us, if we were Hibs, for example, God forbid, but if we were Hibs tonight, you're thinking there's no way that handball gets flagged up by VAR, and there's no way that Rangers don't get the goal cancelled. if the same thing hadn't happened with Lauren Shankland last week. It was almost like, a double, a kind of double jeopardy thing for a double jinx for Hibs. It was Hearts' goal that was wrongly allowed to stand last week that made sure that goal was definitely not going to stand this week. But I didn't. Again, I knew there was something going on. I was kind of hoping he was offside, maybe Boyle, because it all happened so quickly. It was real alarm bells for Rangers. That thing, we're pushing forward quite confidently, but in massive spaces at the back. Over the ball went. Cornelius couldn't sort it out. The ball's in the back of the net, but it was controlled by the hand by Martin Boyle. I need to see it back. I don't know how blatant it was, but it looked from the moment Nick Walsh started telling our players to get away from me, that it was going to be disallowed, and it was. And then I say the half carried on. Rangers been pretty competent, pretty cool, pretty confident, without really getting anywhere greatly. But no looking shaky again after that moment. And then it was just that thing. It was a corner. James, I remember we won the corner thinking, how many corners have we had this half? It might have been our first. I think it maybe second or third at most. But we hadn't had a lot of corners, hadn't had a lot of chances. And James Tavernier puts the ball into the box, and Nico Raskin does the one thing that he has been doing very regularly, usually against Celtic. Ibrox, he set that one up for Robin Proper last season, the New Year Old Firm derby, with this kind of ghosting to the front post header, and he scored that one against Celtic at Parkhead. March I think it was, in last season, earlier this year. He does that. He's great, and scored against Hibs at Easter Road. I don't know, with a header as well. I think was that the last goal we scored last season. It was a header he scored that day. Anyway, I can't really remember, sorry, but it's something he does. The ghost, the kind of fox in the box stuff, but he just ghosts in front of players. The goal he scored against Union St Gilles was, his fellow Belgians, the night we qualified for the last 16 in the Europa League by finishing 8th in the group stage last season under Clement. He scored a kind of ghosting header there. Small guy, but I've always hated that. Because the small. If the ball's at chest height for a tall guy, then the small guy's got the advantage, because it's much easier to control the ball with your head, or have a proper shot with your head than it is to clear it with your chest. But brilliant at what he does, and it goes, it's a goal. So that's the place going crazy, and we've got again that everybody happy kind of double benefit, where guys like me who aren't really sure are more inclined to back the manager versus Raskin and worry about Raskin's attitude. Well, my team are winning, Russell Martin's team are winning. That's fine, and everybody who loves Nico Raskin, that's the only reason we're winning. The only reason we're winning is because Nico Raskin's back in the team. He's been built into a level of hero that he never was last season. It's that same thing at Rangers. I was saying this to somebody earlier the day. Every single Rangers hero has cemented their hero status when they weren't there. But sometimes they've got to leave the club altogether, maybe come back or never come back. And it's like, by the way, what a player he was. He was absolutely fantastic. The abuse you take when you're here. And Nico Raskin, we knew last season he was our most talented player, but by the end of the season, we knew that. It's the most consistent run of form he'd had last season, and it was maybe 4 or 5 months, and even within that run, as I say, we had that run, a record bad run, the only time we've ever lost 4 consecutive games at Ibrox, and Nico Raskin played in 3.5 of those games. He did nothing in any of them to help us in any way, like a true hero would. So I don't mean, so that's really nasty. This is what happens. You end up you get forced into a corner, taking a position. I want everybody to be happy. I want Nico Raskin to stay and be brilliant for us, and I want the manager to be helping him in that and able to use him properly. But certainly getting back to the 4-2-3-1 will have helped Nico Raskin today, and he gets the goal. And then a few minutes later, the referee, it's 4-4 in the golf balls. Minutes of injury time. Also the Mikey Moore. The Mikey Moore treatment he was getting for the wee injury he picked up. And usually you're thinking, oh God, it's going to let Hibs equalise before half time, when you're feeling a bit depressed, but let us get a second before half time. And it was Mikey Moore. I think Raskin played him in. Mikey Moore is a kind of a shot come cross. I don't really know. It was up the other end of the park, as I say, up at the Brimlin. I'm down towards the Copeland, but the ball I think hit off a Hibs defender, was half cleared, and it's Miovski. Double bonus. You've got Miovski, who's been running himself into the ground the last 2 games he's played. He's only 2 previous games for Rangers since he arrived, and we're not scoring any goals, but it's certainly no his fault, because he's not getting the service. But there he was. He's kept himself sharp. I was watching him the night, just seeing he's still, even when he's not getting the service, he's running the runs that have got to be run, and he's coaching his teammates as well, telling them where they've got to go and all that kind of thing. He's chasing, hunting after scraps, and there he was, like the perfect predator tonight, tapping in that one when the ball went loose right in front of goal. Fantastic, 2-0 to Rangers, and I just started thinking all through half time about the fact, as I say, Hibs have come back from they've thrown away 2-goal leads in Europe and in the league this season already, Hibs, and they've also turned round 2-goal deficits in the league and in the in fact the last out in last week was it they were playing Dundee United, and they were 3-1 down at Dundee United at Easter Road, and they come back against 10 men, though, I think, to 3. So you're thinking, is that going to happen again? The Rangers come out in the second half, no changes. We had Miovski, a header in the box. We started brilliantly, and again, that was really good. You've played a good, steady, increasing to the point you've actually scored your first goal in 3 games. We've conceded 8 goals since we last scored a goal, since Finlay Curtis scored that goal against St Mirren in Paisley. We've conceded 8 since we last scored a goal, and you've got 2 just before half time in a game. Are they going to rest on the laurels, whatever? No, they've come up and they've cranked it up again. Come out with real belief, like a team that's solidifying, like a team that might be going somewhere. And Miovski is a head on the box that might have come off somebody's hand. We shout for a penalty. We then Hibs make an arse of playing the ball out. We work it really well. I don't know who it was, kind of back to goal. They're back to the keeper, but they played it back to somebody who had a better. I think it was Miovski, who had a better chance of putting it away, who was facing the Hibs goal, and it ends up getting cleared off the line. Gassam, I think, had one of his typical shots. Playing the left-hand side the whole game tonight, Gassam, so it was fantastic. He's doing really well. That's definitely his slot out wide on the left, but he had his usual shot that he has. Last week he hits the woodwork from the left-hand side, and he did it again tonight. He hit the woodwork. I think it was him that hit the woodwork, and then we had a goal disallowed. 67 minutes. I was sitting right in line with it, so straight away I'm like, I think it was maybe John Suter winning the header, and John Suter was tremendous tonight. And you get Rocky Bashiri is sometimes looks like a criminal injuries compensation claim waiting to happen, the way he uses his physique to snap goalkeepers' backs in two and stuff like that, to concertina opposition defenders in the opposition box, but we've got John Suter who can do the same when that's required. He was throwing himself in there, leaving a few Hibs bodies on the deck. I don't know if it was him that nodded it on in this instance from a corner or a free kick. I can't remember. It's a set piece anyway. And I think it was Miovski who might have put it in, but him and somebody else were clearly offside for us, so there was no real excitement there. But thereafter we kind of dropped off a bit, a lot of substitutions. But I say we controlled the game. I think we controlled the game really well. We didn't panic when Hibs were getting a few corners. They had no inkling of a comeback, Hibs, at all. And I say when we broke, we looked really good. Antman come on, big Chermiti, Yusuf Chermiti, he comes on, the £8 million man for Miovski. He has a run clean through on goal, but he can't get it through. The goalkeeper comes back after the keeper. He's still trying to find his feet, obviously, still trying to get a first team goal. No, let's not look at his record at Everton. The Everton fans loved him, so let's not look into that too deeply. Ant-Man went in we've got Braga coming to town again this season, and it was a run kind of reminiscent of Joe Aribo's on the other side of the park, going into the same box. Just the close control, weaving through 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 defenders at a time, but he couldn't. Was it saved by the goalkeeper this time? That was a vital difference with Joe Aribo's effort against Braga. The first time we played Braga at Ibrox, couldn't put it away, and then you had the one and only Finlay Curtis coming off the bench. The goal machine that Colin Cameron gets in touch with is fantastic in the pod here. Really, really great. Giving the time to the pod, I really appreciate that, Colin. He always gets in touch with lovely posts afterwards, but he's been hammering on about the fact it's a bit unfair, Finlay Curtis, because he was, as Colin says, a total goal machine in pre-season and into the start of the season, and I thought it was quite fitting that the guy who scored the last goal for Rangers before this game tonight, and away to St Mirren that day where we needed to avoid defeat, and Finlay Cameron got the goal there. He had the last say tonight with a very respectable and on-target shot, nevertheless caught by the goalkeeper from outside the box, and that was it. 2-0 to the Teddy Bears. We're through to the League Cup semis, so Russell Martin's getting us to Hampden. And it was a different competition, but he's got maybe a bit of making up for things to do when it comes to semi-finals at Hampden. Russell Martin, the player. So I don't know if the draw's probably happened already. I don't know if the draw's happening for the next round, but we've already drawn Celtic or whoever it is Celtic are playing tomorrow. I think it's Partick Thistle. They're playing. I don't think I've seen it. Oh, we did play Christian Nerling on that. We did play Thistle in a semi-final that I kind of knew about. I wasn't at that one, but that was us. We're through, folks, and it's just nice to be able to talk to you about something nice. And I was rabbiting on about that. Going to see the Smiths and all that back in 1985, 40 years ago tomorrow. It's strictly speaking, it's 40 years ago on Monday, but it was a Sunday, so it might be 40 years ago tomorrow. I went to see the Smiths, and how soon is now? What difference does it make? All these goals you can have about the situation at Rangers just now. But I say, on the Wednesday before, I was looking this up last night. I remember most of it, but I was looking before. The Wednesday before that, I'd seen us playing Osasuna. Osasuna's first ever European tie. And I hadn't even met the guy yet. They would introduce me to Hemingway, so I didn't even know about Pamplona and the Fiesta and all that. The sun also rises, etc. But there I was, having the honour of seeing Osasuna's first ever match in European competition. Craig Patterson scoring the only goal of the game. But the day before that Smiths concert, I'd been here, I'd been at Ibrox, and we'd lost 1-0 to Dundee in the league, and it was our first defeat that season, and we'd won the first, Jock Wallace second term as manager. We'd won I think 5 of our first 6 games that season. We'd drawn the other one, and that was away to Celtic. That was at Parkhead, so we're in fine form, and I was going home and away. We were going through Easter Road and winning 3-1. And the Rangers end was absolutely mobbed, or the away end at Easter Road, absolutely mobbed. I think that was that the day we lifted the Bears lifted the kind of exit door, the emergency exit door. They lifted it off its hinges because the Hibs stewards had shut it early because it was so packed in the terrace, and then the Bears wanted in, and I just remember this thing getting lifted off and dispensed with as more Bears poured in. It was the first time. Because I was only 16 at the time, and we were in the middle of that terrible. It was coming to the end of it, unbeknownst to me. This terrible run of not winning the league in what would be 9 years. I thought this was the day. This was the time it was going to end. Because you're young, you're naive, and I was getting that first real feeling of being in amongst that proper Rangers kind of bedlam that happens when we start picking up any kind of momentum. And because the crowds, I used to come here when I first started supporting Rangers. The crowd, you could see every one of those brown, yellow, orange, red seats. Somebody was talking to me in the post recently about Andy Kennedy. Remember, young Andy, poor Andy Kennedy. He was going to be our answer to Charlie Nicholas, who was running riot with Celtic back in the early 80s, and I think he scored an equaliser against Dundee United, maybe a winner against Motherwell in front of like 10,000, and then maybe 16,000 here at Ibrox. And we're like, it's going to be. Like everything else in those days, it just kind of went off the rails slowly, but here we were. It was the doors to the away end at Easter Road that were lifted off their rails and chucked out to let the Bears in, because we could feel it. We could feel it happening again. I remember beating Hearts 3-1. Sandy Clark taking a punch for Ali McCoist, the two of them getting sent off. I think we were going to go down to Hearts. We turned it round and we were winning 3-1. But we'd lost to Dundee on the Saturday, and I go to see the Smiths on the Sunday. Which changed my life. There's no two ways about it. But I'm not thinking, it's just one defeat. It's one defeat in 7 games. It's not going to make a big difference. And the following Wednesday, we played Hibs at Easter Road, and the first leg of a League Cup semi-final, which I forgot to mention in last night's pod. One of the many things that was wrong with last night's pod. And we lost 2-0 at Easter Road. I didn't go to that game. It's probably because I'd been to the football on the Saturday and a concert on the Sunday. I wouldn't have the money. But I was at the game the following. It was the old League Cup semi-final, used to be home and away, and we lost the first leg 2-0 to Hibs at Easter Road. And then we had Aberdeen. I wasn't at the second leg either of that league. I went to every league game that season except a midweek loss to Aberdeen at Pittodrie. So obviously I wasn't even at school, but it was a school night. I just left school, so I wasn't at school, but obviously wasn't going up to Pittodrie on a Wednesday night, whatever it was. But I'd went to every other game that season, home and away, and I wasn't at the second leg for some reason. That League Cup semi-final against Hibs when it was at Ibrox. But I remember watching it on Scott Sport, the highlights on Scott Sport, and like the first 10 minutes, you could see there was nobody in the Broomloan. The Broomloan was practically empty. And as it jumps through the highlights of it, suddenly you're like halfway through the first half, it was packed with Hibs supporters. So I don't know if it'd been an overturned sauce truck or something like that on the M8, or They're having trouble getting through passport control at Central or whatever. The Hibs, or at Queen Street, sorry, but they just all arrived really, really late, the Hibs fans, and it was like, my God, look at the size of the Hibs support. They really want this badly. And Davy Cooper, as always, Coop in the League Cup, he scored there. It's a great free kick goal that night. I remember the roar for the Rangers supporters watching it. And didn't think I watched it on Scotsport without knowing the score, but we could only beat them 1-0, so we went out on aggregate, and Hibs got tanked 3-0 in the League Cup final. Do you know that Gordon Chisholm played in that League Cup final for Hibs? No, he managed Queen of the South against us in the Scottish Cup final in 2008. Gordon Chisholm, he played for Hibs. He'd signed for Hibs that summer, the summer of '85, and it was the days where we had the League Cup final in October or November, whatever it was, and it was Ferguson's Aberdeen really that stuffed them 3-0. But Gordon Chisholm had signed that summer from Sunderland, and he played for Sunderland in the English League Cup final in March 1985, where Sunderland get beat 1-0 off Norwich, and Gordon Chisholm scored the goal. It was an own goal. He scored an own goal. Can you name another Scotsman who scored an own goal in a Wembley Cup final in the 80s? Of course you can. There's Swansea, Link, and there's Glenn Hoddle, Irene Drury, Faith Healing. There's so many Russell Martin links to that other own goal scored by a Scotsman at Wembley in the 80s. But Gordon Chisholm, you talk about Lucky White Heather. He scores an own goal in the English League Cup final, and then just comes up the road in the same year lose the Scottish League Cup final. We Hibs, but the whole point of that was the follow that Aberdeen beat them 3-0 in that League Cup final, and the Saturday after I'd seen the Smiths, I was at Ibrox up the back of the Cope with my pals because Aberdeen were coming to town, and they were the team you had to test your mettle against in those days. They were the reigning league champions. They'd won the league in 1980, 1984, 1985, and here we were in the 85-86 season, still kind of end of September, and Aberdeen were coming to town, and Rangers were absolutely on form, despite that wee slip up against Dundee, and Craig Patterson gets sent off. I think Hugh Burns gets sent off. The Eastern closer ended up in the park fighting with the police and stuff like that, and Aberdeen beat us 3-0, going on 4 or 5, and that was it. And it slowly went off the rails, and it ended up by the end of the season. It was the only season in Rangers history. At the end of the season, we didn't get to the Scottish Cup final. We didn't get to the League Cup final. We finished 5th in the league, and we had, for the only time in our history, our domestic history, in our whole history, Rangers lost more games than they won in the league. I think we won 13 games and we lost 14. We drew 9 that season, and I always remember that being the only time ever we'd lost more games than we've won in a league campaign, and it was awful and it was miserable. One of those games that we lost, Graham Souness was already announced as the manager in the Clydebank programme, the programme at Kilbowie. The next one of the other games that we lost, Walter Smith had sat on the bench at Love Street to take charge of us, where ironically, or poetically, he would take charge of Rangers in his own right as Rangers manager for the first time a few years later. And then by the game where we beat Motherwell 2-0 to secure UEFA Cup football, Walter and Graham Souness were out on the park, in the middle of the park, to say hello to the fans. And by the end of that season, we had the Glasgow Cup final in front of 40-odd thousand here, where we beat Celtic 3-2 the week after they had won the league on the last day of the season, stealing it on goal difference from Hearts, overleaping Hearts on the very last day of the season, just to make that the most sickening season ever probably in my life, because I didn't miss a game, apart from a couple of League Cup games and one league game. I was at the lot, but it was the start of something absolutely fabulous. And the other thing is, at the beginning of that season, it was we've drawn 1 and won 5 of our first 6 league games. That slip up to Dundee, it doesn't mean anything, And here we are, Russell Martin, turning it completely around. It was like 40 years later. We have failed to win our first 5 games against top flight opposition under Russell Martin, but we won our 6th. And let's not dismiss this, because it could get turned round completely the other way, because of course Morrissey had to cancel his concert last night because he's getting death threats. He's getting death threats in the USA, and he's suing the Smiths. And of course Andy Rourke is dead now, but he's suing the Smiths. He wants to get back, not suing them, but he's trying to buy back the rights to all their songs, because he absolutely hates the Smiths. Things can turn round, it could become completely the opposite case in the space of 40 years, and also the momentum at the beginning of a season can be completely turned on its head by just one little change in the form. And tonight we got that nice, steady, easy win over top flight Scottish opposition. And enjoy the rest of your weekend trips. I'm going to drop into Morrison's my way up the road and get myself a wee bottle of wine. I think it's too late for the lagers, isn't it, this time of night? You get yourself all kind of fizzy night. You're not going to get to sleep. Who wants to get to sleep? They want to savour a proper Rangers victory. Anyway, I'll just hopefully we've got. Hopefully you can. I'll be a gigantic grumpy git will be garrulously gestating Genk coming to Glasgow and I can't do it. I just half man half biscuit are actually much better at lyrics than I give them credit for. You know, if I could just get Morrissey out my head, I'd be able to go on with my life here. All I can talk about is Morrissey. I mean, he's a total far right nutcase these days. He's an absolute pain in the neck. He talks complete dangerous garbage, but I don't want to see any harm coming to him, obviously. But it's just absolutely mental. And I just want to have one of these podcasts where I can just wrap the thing up nice and poetically and nice and quickly, and we don't have to go on and on and on about all the problems I've been having in Knockers. We won the game. Get out of my head, Morrissey.